Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our opening panel for Inked. I am Francisca Mendoza. My pronouns are he, him. I am the marketing manager at the Play of Trump. And I just want to go through a couple of logistics before we get started with the meeting today. So first of all, Zoom now offers captions for every meeting, so please feel free to turn them on if you so need. Want to go quickly through our values. The Realm seeks to be an equitable, inclusive, anti-oppressive, and anti-racist organization. More information on our mission and values is available on our website, which we're linking to in the chat. Those values extend to this virtual space, so if at any time you feel you experience something that's not in alignment with those values, please feel free to chat us here or follow up via email. I want to do a quick land acknowledgement. I am joining you today from the traditional unceded territories of the Canarsie and Lenape people in Brooklyn. I offer recognition and respect and acknowledge that colonization is an ongoing process that continues to impact the lives and lands of Native communities. I want to acknowledge that in addition to the physical land we occupy today, the platforms, technology, and equipment that we are using consume resources that are based in physical lands and are not universally accessible to all peoples and communities. We're also sharing a link in the chat for those of you who would like to learn more about the spaces we occupy, and I invite you to take a moment to name them in the chat as well. Speaking of the chat, please submit any questions that you have for our fellows in the Q&A function. And if you see a question that you would also like to see answered, please upvote it. Time permitting, we will select some of those to answer at the end of our panel. If you have any technical difficulties, please do chat us here on the chat function, but for questions for the panelists, do use the Q&A. That is all, so let's get started, and I'm gonna bring in my co-panelist, Alexis Williams. Please come join us.
Oh, hello. Hi, everyone out there in the universe. My name's Alexis Williams, she, her pronouns. I'm the associate AD here at the Realm, and really excited to be kicking off Inked with this panel and with our wonderful fellows who we've been working with for the past season. Though I have not been in a room with them yet physically, but lots of Zoom spaces. So I'm going to bring those lovely humans out. Wonderful fellows, do you want to turn your cameras on and unmute yourselves?
And we're gonna go around, so please do introduce yourself with your name and pronoun, and tell us a little bit about your play, particularly which one is it and when is it being performed. I'm gonna choose someone to go first. Francisca, you were very nice to me before the panel started, so I'm gonna call on you first.
I thought you were gonna say it's because we have such similar names.
To confuse the audience. Francisca.
Hello, everyone. I am Francisca Dasilvera. Usually go by Fran. I use the pronouns she, her, hers. And my play is not for profit, or the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion play. You have to say the whole thing if you're ever gonna say it. And the reading for that is on Wednesday, April 21st at 4 p.m. Eastern time. And I'll talk more about it a little bit later, but it is a play for anyone who has ever worked at a nonprofit institution or in an office space and has ever left a day needing a very strong drink. So if that is you, then please come and commiserate with me. I will pop it over to Omar.
Hello, everybody. I'm Omar Velez Melendez. I'm a Puerto Rican playwright, and I wrote, my pronouns are they, them, and I wrote La Casa Arriba, which I've been workshopping for the past year amazingly. But yeah, I'll speak on it a little bit later. I will popcorn it to May.
Thank you, Omar. Hi, everyone. My name is May True Half Dolly. I go by she, her pronouns, and my play is called ABCD. It's about students and teachers who cheat on standardized tests in the No Child Left Behind era, and it's on Tuesday, April 20th at 4. And I will pass it on to Philip.
Thank you, May. Hi, I'm Philip Christian Smith. I use he, him pronouns. My play is We Can't Breathe. It is going to be on April 22nd. It's a Thursday at 4 p.m. Very briefly, it's about two young boys who want to protest the death of Eric Garner in 2014, two young gay Black boys.
Thank you, everyone, for those lovely introductions and those plays. Fran, you described the entire Playwrights Realm staff, so obviously we're all going to be watching. Okay, I want to kickstart this with the Writing Fellowship is one of the programs at the Playwrights Realm, and if you're curious, I encourage you to visit our website and learn more about all the programs that we run. But the Fellowship is certainly a core program that has been around for many years, and this is the way of me saying that I don't actually remember how many, but I want to say like 10 or 11.
You say like at least a decade, like over a decade,
Exactly.
over a decade.
At least a decade. And so I do think it's useful for people to sort of, especially those who would want to apply, to get a sense of where people are, where they come into the fellowship, where are they in their careers. So our first question is just encouraging you to talk a little bit more about like the journey that brought you here. Any part of it that you wish to answer, but more specifically artistically, how has your playwriting journey been up until the Playwrights Realm? The first shall be the last and vice versa. So I'm gonna call on Philip to answer first.
Let's see. My journey of playwriting, is that right, Francisco? Okay. So I was an actor, and I will act again, I'm sure. Basically in 2012, I was told that I was going to develop a very serious cancer, and in 5 years, and it was exactly 5 years. But in the interim, I decided that I would learn as much as I could about playwriting, because I'd always wanted to do it, and I worked with playwrights when I was at Yale, and we worked very closely together, and I thought that what they did was magic. And so in those 5 years, I educated myself at ESPA, and I took a class with literally everybody who teaches there. And then I was able to get into the Exquisite Corpse lab, and then they made me a writer in residence. And from that writer in residence, they did a play of mine. And my first play was actually produced. It was amazing. And that was only in 2018, so it wasn't that long ago. And since then, I have, basically just been applying for stuff and applying for stuff and applying for stuff and getting rejection letters here and there, and once in a while something. And then I ended up at Playwrights Realm. Yay! I will popcorn it over to Omar.
Thank you, Philip. So I started, I studied theater. I studied journalism and theater back home in Puerto Rico, but I started writing plays in Puerto Rico as well. And I did a couple of shows down there before actually, making the big leap to New York and looking into MFAs. And finally, when I got into Hunter College, that's where I met Alexis. And it was such a great vibe from the start, and like, it was also like the Playwrights Realm came to me as also like a majorly women-led organization, which I also love. So I put it at the top of my list. So once I graduated, like Philip, I applied everywhere and anywhere. And I managed to get a beautiful blessings. I got to be in the Lark's Playwrights Week, which I loved. I am part of Ars Nova's play group, both amazing homes, which I wholeheartedly recommend. And after that, I managed to get into like the deadline for the fellowship and scratch that was coming up. So I decided to apply, and then the pandemic hit. But we'll probably talk a lot more about that. And so basically, I was just out of college and applying, and just getting opportunities, thankfully. I will popcorn it over to Fran.
Thank you. I have been writing plays since high school. And the summer after my junior year, I did a playwriting summer program at NYU, which was like, you know, when you're 16 years old in New York City for the first time and you're going to see musicals, and I don't know, I fell in love, and I was like, this is what I want to do. I can do it as a career. So I ended up applying to NYU and getting into the dramatic writing program. While I was doing the dramatic writing program, I also decided I wanted to double major in history, because I'd always loved history. And so when I went to speak to my program director about that, she was like, sure, yes, I will sign off on your paper. But have you heard of dramaturgy? Which theater plus history apparently equals dramaturgy, says everyone but dramaturgs. And so I started doing some literary apprenticeships and some dramaturgy apprenticeships, reading lots of plays while writing my own plays. And after NYU, I decided to go back to Boston, which is where I grew up. You can tell because there's a Red Sox hat right behind me, which is probably something you shouldn't talk about to New Yorkers. But yeah, so I went back to Boston and I started working at a theater company called Company One, first in education, and then I started doing some dramaturgy for them. And so at that point, I was wearing two different hats, which hasn't stopped since then. But after a couple, 3-4 years of doing that, and applying to things, but not as seriously as I thought that I would, I decided to go to grad school at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland, and did a 1-year program there where I was totally able to just be a playwright, which is really, really wonderful. And after that program coming back, that's when I like seriously started to apply to things, because I actually liked the plays that I was writing. And those plays had come from the grad program. And it was one of those plays that got me into this lovely program, and also into the Public's Emerging Writers Group, which I'm currently still in. And another play got me into the National New Play Network's showcase this year. So lots happened in the last year and a little bit, which again I'm sure we'll talk about as well. But my first interaction with the playwrights realm, actually, Alexis, I don't know if you know this, was while I was still working at Company One as a literary manager, and I was helping to run our Emerging Writers Play Lab group and working on the application. And I emailed somebody at the Realm because I had like seen your application and liked it so much that I was like, can I please look at it and borrow it so that I could use it? And it was very kindly sent to me. So thank you.
About to ask, I'm like, should I ask publicly? Like, did we send it? Were we good humans? But we were. So
you
okay.
were. May.
Yeah, so I grew up in New York City, and my parents took me to a lot of theater. My whole Egyptian family is like actors and like theater journalists, and like I come by it honestly. But my parents were not theater people, but took me to a lot of stuff, and like I just loved it from a young age. Like I don't think I ever had a moment of like deciding to do theater, or like that was what I wanted to do as a career, because I just like never didn't want to do that. And then in 7th grade, we had an assignment for a class to write a play, and I wrote one, and I think I got a D on it, but I wasn't discouraged. I like wrote that first play and was like, this is it, like this is my thing, I'm doing this forever. and, like was hanging out at the drama bookshop a lot, in high school, thinking I was really cool. And was sort of just like writing plays and reading plays. And then in college, my playwriting professor was Kiara Hughes, and she was just a brilliant mentor. And everything I write goes back to that class in one way or another. I started ABCD as a little 10-page play my senior year with her. So there's definitely a line or two in there that was just like written to like impress Kiara Hughes. But yeah. And then I graduated from college. I went and did a master's in Dublin, not in playwriting, but in theater, and it was super fun. Somewhere in that year, I was like walking down a street in Croatia, and I got an email from Club Thumb, and they were like, hey, we would like you to be in our writers group. And I was like, how did you find me? But also like, yes. So I ended up back in New York. I was in that group last year. And last year I saw Mothers, and I saw it on POC night. And I was just like, I'd seen other shows at the Playwrights Realm, but I remember seeing that show and thinking like, these are like really good people. Like, I don't know anyone who works here, but like, I can tell just from the energy in this room that like, this is really good vibes. So I was kind of looking out for opportunities to interact with the Playwrights Realm from there. And here we are.
I absolutely love that the show that gave you the impression that we were good people is the one where the mothers see their children. But great. If that's what you got from it, like, I can't complain. So I guess the answer to my question is all over the place. That's where people are when they come into the fellowship. I do want to take a moment to shout out, like Omar, I was also part of Playwrights Week at the Lark, and it is an amazing program. And we're not selfish with our writers, and we want them to be everywhere, and that's definitely a place where they should be. So this was the fun part, and I am gonna let Alexis take the question that's not as fun.
I'll try to put a fun spin on the boring way that you've written the question. So I like to think of the land that existed pre-2020 as like the before, like in the before times. And when you all applied for this fellowship, it was with plays, and the applications came in the before times, like before COVID had shut everything down and basically decimated, things as it is now. So that hadn't occurred yet. How did it feel to get the news, in the midst of all this last, I guess, summer it would have been, that you were selected at a time when, reality had changed so intensely and so drastically? Let's do last first again. Let's start with May.
Yeah, I think in general, but especially at that moment, my experience has been such an emotional roller coaster because, being young and being an artist, I'm so hopeful. And I'm like so genuinely excited to be part of the generation of playwrights that I'm a part of. And like, all the other fellows give me like so much excitement and hope. And like, I just feel so much hope. And also like, despair at what has become of our world, and the odds that we are contending with as sort of young artists navigating this world. So I think it was both of those things. It's funny to me how connected I feel to the folks at the Realm and the other fellows and my collaborators in my workshop, even though I've like never met them. I have no idea what their knees look like, but I don't have to. I feel very connected in mind and spirit. And yeah, I'll pass it to Omar.
Backwards. I definitely felt, it was like weird because I definitely felt grateful. Like, of course, it's a huge opportunity that I was wanting. It was like, I didn't even know where it stood, amidst the pandemic. Like once everything hit, just like the news came in August, like it had been like mid-pandemic. But it definitely felt grateful. It was just like, everything was happening, and because it still continues to happen, I don't know, I was like, I was really shocked. And then it gave me like a new definition of gratitude, because like it gave me the opportunity to use my plays and just like dive into my plays in order to, you know, navigate everything that was happening. And whether that navigation was successful or not, we're still deciding. But no, yeah, it was an amazing, it was great. It was great, but bittersweet understanding the rest of the world, you know. I'll pass it over to Fran.
Yeah, I echo so much of that in terms of like being shocked, but also grateful, especially as I'm sure like I and others were getting emails of like, this is actually not happening anymore. So I know you applied, but maybe like next year, ? So the fact that A, it was still happening, and B, there was a lot of clarity around what, like how things would function, I really appreciated. And also the flexibility around how things would function as well. But for me, like, I try not to say this too much, but for as like isolating as the pandemic has been for me, because I live alone, it's also allowed me to do multiple things that I would not have been able to do had it not occurred. So had the pandemic not happened, I would have had to like quit my job. So I work at a regional theater in upstate New York, and move to New York City to be able to do this. And so I think it, you know, it allowed me to like continue to do dramaturgy while I also was being an actual playwright, and gave me this time to decide where my priorities actually lay, which is something that I feel like I've been running away from for a very long time. And so I'm grateful to be able to do both things, and now to be able to say like, this is the pathway that I'm going to prioritize now. Yeah, it's turned into a little bit of a therapy session. Sorry.
That was
like,
objective all along.
I mean, I feel like all of yes, it always is. Anyway.
Yeah, Philip.
Continuing the therapy session, there was the before times, and I mean, 2020 started off, I was living my best life. I went to Curacao with my husband. I came back one day and I was in Colorado at the Winter Playwrights retreat. I was living. And then March came, and this was in February. And I promptly got COVID like the first week of March. And so March was just like hell for me. April was like, I didn't leave the house until maybe April 15th. Like, you know, a year ago today was the first time I ever left the house. So then I had to recover from the COVID, and then I started writing, and then I had like a really good period where I was like, ooh, I finished a play. Ooh, I finished another play. You know, I was like, and you know, my friends are struggling, and I was like, okay, don't be braggy that you finished 2 plays, you know, just, you know, whatever, you finished 2 plays. And it caught up with me towards the end of the year. But in that end of the year, I got a call from Alexis, and I screamed. I was so happy. I was so grateful. It just, for me, I knew it was going to be a big change. I saw the wolves, I saw the moors, I saw the revolving cycles truly and steadily rolled. You know, I mean, I knew what Playwrights Realm was about. I knew, I saw another one. I can't come up with the name of it, but you know, it's like, I've seen a lot of stuff at the Realm, and I knew the quality of the work. I knew the support of the writers. I was like, this is where I belong. I didn't think I was going to get it, you know, but it happened. And, you know, it's been a life-changing moment for me to have people who actually read my work when I send it to them. you know, I mean, it's insane. It's like, oh, you read it. And, I'm constantly surprised when like, Alexis or Becca will say something so specific about the play that I'm like, wow, I'm just not used to it. I'm not, so I'm very grateful. And back to you, Alexis.
Oh, thanks, y'all. And quick shout out. So Becca is Becca Weiss, our fabulous writers group literary coordinator, who I think is watching this out. I was texting with her, so she's there. And shout out to Becca, you're amazing. Francisco, over to you for the next question.
I'm just still digesting the answers that you've all given because it all lands in so many different, like in some ways getting a rejection letter in the middle of all of this was like, whatever. And they usually, and I'm sure I'm gonna get some cited from Alexis because probably ours was too, but it was like, I know this is not good news, but I was like, God, just don't. This is too much to bear. But it does make the acceptance or the, like you got the Hogwarts just like resonate so much more in that moment. So, I'm happy for you all in that way. Absolutely. The next question was going to be, and I think you guys sort of started to answer it a little bit with the whole, like, I don't know people's needs. I don't know, May, that you can trust someone whose needs you haven't seen. I don't know if you know this, but needs were like a really central plot point in a Agatha Christie book, and it did solve the murder. So I do not agree with your view of like, I don't know their needs and I don't need to. But speaking about the experience of having done this virtually, I would also ask, and this, of course, you're doing the fellowship in a way that we've never done it before. And for the most part, most of us haven't worked in theater in a virtual way. And we all know the cons, and if you want to shout them out anyway, go ahead. But I've also found, and I speaking both as someone on the admin side and as a player, that there are like unexpected advantages or things that and I think Francisca also brought up a really good point, which I've experienced in some of the opportunities. I was able to do it because it was remotely, like otherwise it wouldn't have happened. So what were some things that you discovered in this sort of virtual edition of it, or in what ways did it impact your theater making that you were not used to just because it's never been virtual? And I'm gonna start with Omar.
No, I mean, the greatest, so like, yeah, by the time I got into the fellowship, like I was like in Zoom fatigue because it was like mid-pandemic. We had already gone through a lot of Zooms. But in that second semester of like 2020, I also had other jobs that, evidently were Zoom. And it just allowed me to connect with actors and performers and people from back home, which I always want to work with, but I don't have in New York. Because we're all now virtually connected in the interwebs, we can now participate together. And, I managed to get like actors like Aidita Encarnacion, who I've known all my life and has been perfect for the role. So yeah, like Zoom actually bridged the gap between New York and Puerto Rico. I'll pass it over to Philip.
Yeah, I mean, it's a hard question because, I kind of really do wish that I was like sitting at the table at the Realm eating snacks with everybody and, and breathing air and, on the website, it says that you could get an occasional hug, and I could really use a hug in this pandemic, it's just, yeah. I mean, what it's really meant to me is that it has been a way for me to escape the pandemic, because I have a place to be, my apartment, but to have a little structure to my life and, somebody asking me like, how are those rewrites going? Or how is this going? It just really means a lot. And so that actually helped me to, I think in every area of my life, just to have a group to go to was just a beacon for me. And I will pass it to May.
Yeah, so first of all, I have so much more time to do rewrites when I'm not taking the subway back and forth to Queens every day. So that's a good perk. I was also in Ireland last fall because my partner is Irish and I was living there for a bit. So being able to join meetings and do rehearsals from Ireland was great. You know, the other fellows will remember me like chugging coffee for when the time difference was a little wonky. And I loved it. It was so fun. And it was so, I felt so deeply appreciative that the realm was supportive of me like doing that. So I really appreciated that. And then this isn't necessarily a perk, but just something that I was worried about not having in the digital format and then was pleasantly surprised. My play is about schools, and something that I really was hungry for was just like hearing from my collaborators about like, what was your schooling like? Have you taught? Have you had children in your life go to school? Like, what are the schools in your life, and does this play or does it not resonate with that? And I feel like those are the conversations that usually happen like on breaks or like when everyone goes out for drinks after rehearsal. And I was kind of worried about missing out on that, or missing out on like the bonding and the trust forming that facilitates those conversations. And like people have reached out to me and shared that with me in really beautiful ways. And like I feel like my collaborators and I have formed that trust in a way that I am endlessly grateful for. Fran, have you gone?
Not yet. No, thank you. I mean, I echo what Omar said about being able to work with actors that we may not have been able to work with because they're not New York City local. That's been really wonderful. I realize I really like having my camera off while I'm listening to the reading. Like that is a huge perk, because you can make all the faces you want. You can, take a little walk, like as you're, get a snack. There's so many things that you can do while you're actively listening. I probably shouldn't admit that, but.
And like, if any of your actors are listening to that, they're like, is Fran just making faces and like doing your laundry while
we're in a multitask. No, but I mean, like the idea of just listening, without the expectation or the pressure of like actors thinking like, am I doing it right? Like, am I, which I've experienced before in a workshop space. So that's been really, really great. And then on like the like realm meeting side of things, like one of the things that I was worried about was thinking about like the drinks after meetings and like where does that like camaraderie happen, and we've still tried to capture that, and not even like because we have to, but because we want to, which has been really great, trying to figure out like creative ways to bond. So I'm glad that like we like each other enough to want to do that. And I say that because I don't take it for granted, because it's not always the case with writers groups. So.
Yes. Well, I am determined that we will all be in a space together and like getting a drink, even if it's like in a park, while open container laws, whatever. That's why there are bags. It'll be fine. But we, when you were just saying that, Fran, I was thinking about like the game night we had. Like we had like a game night where we did like virtual like categories and like quiplash and just like fun stuff. So yeah, all the things. Oh, the next question's mine, isn't it? So I should ask it. Well, yes, your plays. So we're talking about pandemic and all of that, but like want to talk about your plays even more. So tell us a bit about your play. What was the inspiration for it, and how has it changed throughout your time with the fellowship? I am going to start this with Omar.
So yeah, Las Hace Arriba. So Las Hace Arriba is this dreamy play about Isabel, who is this Puerto Rican girl who manages her anxiety by taking us into this imagined journey of her grandfather's funeral and everything that she kind of thinks will happen within her anxiety episode. And everything that is going to happen when she tells her family that she wants to move back to Puerto Rico from New York, where she's at right now. And it's this play, it's a whole play, it's about family, but it's also about Puerto Rican politics and statehood and what does that mean for us, and like all the promises that have been made towards Puerto Rican that haven't been met. It is like originally inspired by Henrik Ibsen's Rosmersholm, which is a great Ibsen deep cut. I recommend it wholeheartedly. But I also, I was inspired in my grandmas who are statehood supporters and believe in these promises that were made to them way back in the day, and they've voted accordingly ever since, and they haven't gotten what they were asking for at one point. So like I kept thinking a lot about my grandmas because I was in New York. I hadn't seen them in a long while, but I just kept thinking of like that sort of ideological and political void that they existed in. But yeah, what else is part of the question? It's a little bit about my play.
About the play inspiration and how was it changed throughout your time with fellowship?
Yeah. So like my original draft of La Casa Arriba, like the way I write is like I write the dots on the paper that I then have to connect. So like this was like La Casa Arriba was one of my very, very early drafts that was very, very rough and kind of like needed a year development. So like it's been wonderful to have actors in the room to help me guide these characters and connect those dots and keep it in this dreamy space and have like this anti-family play instead of a normal living room boring family drama. But yeah, it has taken quite a shape. Although I would say that it's still in draft mode, but just seeing it come to life is so exciting. Yeah. May.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I have never cheated on a test. That was not the inspiration. But I read this article called Wrong Answer by Rachel Aviv, and it blew my mind. And it's about a school that's very similar to one of the schools in my play, where the teachers were changing their students' answers on tests just because that was the only way to keep the school open. And if they didn't meet their performance targets, the school was going to get shut down. And I remember feeling like this is so thorny and I don't know how to feel about it, and I feel really conflicted, and that feeling of conflictedness is usually what makes me want to write and spend time inside a story. And then I started thinking about the high school I went to, which was sort of like a specialized New York public high school, and the sort of like narrative around meritocracy and equity, and how that really wasn't true, but how I didn't really have the language to process or talk about that when I was a high schooler. And I was starting to think about all of these systems and how they're actually part of the same system, and how testing and how our public school system really hurts people on both ends at the same time that it tells them they're helping them. So that was kind of the initial impulse. And then how this play has changed over the course of the last year so much. I've rewritten it multiple times. I've cut characters. I've changed the order of the scenes a million times. Like I have worked my butt off on this play. And I think that part of that comes from like, at the beginning of this year, I was really precious about kind of remaining true to this sort of source material that was grounded in journalistic fact. And then as I started working with actors, I started writing more to their voices and to my director's vision and to the vision of my design consultant, Reed Thompson, and paradoxically, in sort of like really leaning into all of the other voices in the room, I actually feel like the play became more mine. And like, you know, these schools are mine, these characters are mine. Like, I don't really care what else anyone has to say about them, you know, and like, I'm at a point where like, I don't really, this may or may not resonate with other people's high school experiences. I don't really know, but I don't care anymore because this is my story. And this is like, I feel like it's finally the story that I've always wanted it to be. I will pass it to Philip.
Thanks, May. So my play is called We Can't Breathe. And the impetus for it was a social media post by a friend, associate friend. And this person posted on social media, if Eric Garner didn't want to get choked out, he shouldn't have resisted arrest. And I read it and I was angry, I was hurt, then I was angry, hurt, angry. And all I could think was, have you hugged me? I was going back in my mind, has this person hugged me? Because I hadn't seen this in this person before. It was new. I was just like, whoa, I don't know you. But today, somebody I know posted on Facebook that if you put a word in front of Lives Matter, like a description, like, you know, Black Lives Matter, you are a racist. And I am just flabbergasted. And I was, you know, my initial thought was unfriend, delete, get rid of this person from your life. But I sometimes think that sometimes you have to know. You know, I live in New York City. I'm gay, I'm Black. I'm not bothered. I live my life, and I'm from the middle of the country. You know, I'm from Ohio, I'm from New Mexico. You know, these are very different places than New York City. So you can get lost in your bubble of liberality and everybody loves each other here. And I just wanted to remind myself that it's just not all like that. So the play, We Can't Breathe, follows Franklin and his friend Rivington, and they live in Bushwick, and Franklin has parents and he goes to Stuyvesant. The other kid goes to crappy school in Brooklyn, and they are living two different lives as far as their education, but they both want to protest the death of Eric Garner. And from my real life, Franklin's white aunt says what I just told you about getting choked out in front of a family of Black people, and chaos ensues. What has changed about the play? It has been minor surgeries all over the play. 10 pages have been cut from the end. It's 10 pages shorter. Things are still juggling around. Well, while I was doing that, they were like, what are you doing? So this, I'm just going to show you. So this is a page of notes. This is a page of notes. This is a page of notes. These are combined emails that came from Becca and Alexis.
Solicited, requested. To be clear.
Absolutely. Yeah. But, you know, and they're good. And I'm going to sit down and I've been working on them all week. So this is like just from, a read through of stuff. And, so a lot of stuff has been rearranged, it's just a cleaner play than it was when I came in. It's not different. I haven't cut a character. I haven't, done much of that way. It's just kind of condensing. I also wrote the biggest play of the four of us. So, it's a big boy. And just trying to make it a little thinner. That's all.
I think Fran is. Yep.
I'm terrible. Hi, Fran.
It's okay. It's okay. I'm just in awe that you have like paper, like a printer. Like I haven't seen one of those in so long. Yeah, my play, Not for Profit, or the Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion play. It's about an education nonprofit called Rise Up. that runs a mentorship program where they pair middle schoolers of color with like high-powered CEOs, and they're like, we're supporting the youth. And the staff at this nonprofit is small but mighty. They have gone through very many staffing changes. It's a very diverse staff as well, who are very, very surprised at the beginning of the play when a white male consultant shows up to their meeting saying that he is there to fix some institutional problems that they did not know that they had. And as they're trying to figure out like why he's really there, and also like more interpersonal drama between some of the characters, this big scandal breaks that makes them like question the work that they are doing. It's about toxic workplace cultures. It's about microaggressions. It's about really, it's about like the disconnect between policy versus practice that I have seen at the nonprofits that I have worked at, and also have heard about from other people who have worked at nonprofits. Something that I am really, really fascinated by, because the work that you say is so good and so well-meaning, but the way that it gets done internally and the things that you have to deal with in order to get the work done can be so demoralizing. So I was like, we're gonna throw that all into a play and make it a little bit funny and a little uncomfortable, which is how I like to describe all of my plays. I wrote this as my dissertation play in grad school. But the idea for it came before. I'd worked at like an education nonprofit. I'd worked at a social justice nonprofit. I've worked at nonprofit theaters, and started to realize that like a lot of the issues were kind of not the same, but had very many similarities that were due to the way that nonprofit institutions are just structured as a whole. And yeah, I wrote that as my dissertation play. And when I applied for the fellowship, there were two big things that I said that I wanted to work on. One of them was the ending, which I'd had some questions about. You know, you get to like page 70 and you're like, you feel so good, and then you are like, what the heck happens after this? And you rush it and you're like, that's not the best that it could be, but I finished it. So I knew that I really wanted to dissect the ending. And then the second thing was the space of the play. It is set in an office, and it's set in an open floor plan office. And so I imagined that all of the characters would be on the stage at all times. They would be visible, they'd be moving, even if they weren't in the scenes directly. And that's something that I was really excited about, and that tied into the themes of the play, but I didn't know exactly what that meant, and I didn't think it was as strong as it could be in the draft that I sent. And so over the last year, it hasn't been a year, no, not yet, almost. Over the last few months, that's something that I've like very specifically been working on with my director, who is absolutely fabulous, Reg Douglas, and my cast. And the really great thing about having the same director and the same cast from the internal workshops that we did is that they know the world of the play so intimately, and are able to I don't know if like they feel as invested as I do, which is really, really wonderful, and therefore are also able to, I think, like give more specific notes, and we can go through things even slower and even more specific. And I feel like that's where the play is right now, that like we're really trimming the fat off of each of the scenes, and feel really great about it.
All right. All the nonprofits except for the Playwrights realm is, I think, what you meant. So lovely.
No.
Whatever do you mean? Lovely answers all. Actually, this has worked out perfectly with time. So I will bring us to the future with my last question, which is, what are you looking forward to, or what are your hopes and dreams as you graduate from our program? You will always be part of the Realm family and live in our hearts and in our budgets, but you will exit to the fellowship. And it can, it can be very practical, like, I'm looking forward to the O'Neill, where I've just been programmed, or it can be like, I'm looking forward to getting vaccinated and living my life again. Really up to you what your graduation speech looks like, but this is your chance to deliver it. And speaking of graduations, I'm going to start with May.
Why, speaking of graduations, I haven't graduated from anything recently.
Well, but your playwright materials were all about like graduation speeches.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, there are some graduations at schools, I guess. But I will talk about something that I think this fellowship has really given me, that is maybe like the most precious gift, that I will definitely take with me into the future. There have been many points in this fellowship where I've like come across a problem with my play and I'm like, I have no idea how to fix this. Like, I just don't know what to do about this thing. And I think in the past, my response to that would usually be to like abandon the play either forever or like for a few years and then come back to it when I'm at a different point in my life. And I obviously couldn't do that because a lot of the time it was like, well, we have rehearsal tomorrow, so like there's got to be something for the actors to say. And like the really amazing thing is that every time in this process I have sort of felt like, oh, I have no idea how to navigate this problem in my script. The Realm has really helped me climb out of that, and I don't know how we do it every time, but like every time it happens. And I think what I will take from that is that like I'm a much stronger playwright than I think I am, in terms of my ability to like climb out of those sort of black holes of confusion. And I have what I need inside me to like navigate those problems. And when I don't have what I need, I have all these people who can help me and who are in it with me. And I think knowing that just like makes me feel really ready for whatever comes next, which I don't know what comes next, but I think I have like the internal skills to like navigate whatever problems arise in the future. I will pass it to Omar.
Oh, the future. I'm going to Disney World. No, don't go to Disney World. Definitely don't go to Disney World. No, I'm staying in Writerland and continuing writing and heading into workshops for another play that I have in Soho Rep, hopefully soon. So stay tuned for that. I will pass it over to Fran.
Thanks. I'm ready to find a home for this play. I think that, yeah, I'm really proud of the work that has been done on it. And I think that it is at a point where now it just needs to be on a stage somewhere. So hopefully like that's the really active thing that happens now. And then I'm also going to be in workshops in May for another play of mine, Can I Touch It? Which is really exciting, and ready to write something new.
How can people see that, should they choose to? Let us know when and where?
Gosh, that is, I think that might be like a closed workshop. Oh my gosh, that sounds so elitist. I'm sorry. And yeah, I'm ready to write something new. I'm working on a commission with Colt Core Theater right now, which is an 18-month commission towards production, which I need to start writing. Yeah, lots of things that are close to my heart that I think I now need to like put down so that I can let more things into my heart. Philip.
Thank you, Fran. I just want to go back to a little bit of the last question, something that I did not mention. You know, with the events of this last week, it has been a little tough in the rehearsal room. And, you know, today one of the actors was saying his lines and he's talking about the blue curtain, and the other character says like, they too old to be in a sorority. And he had to stop. And, you know, just kind of, what he said was he was getting the tingles because of, you know, what happened in Minneapolis, the lieutenant who got pepper sprayed in Virginia, the Black man who was told by an active duty military that he was walking in the wrong neighborhood all this week. You know, it's a lot for a Black person to be dealing with, and it weighs. So sorry, just now to the future. Let's see. I have a production of my play, The Chechens, which is being filmed right now at Bennington College. They're in rehearsal right now. They're probably filming a scene. And they're awesome. I know there's like a freshman is playing the mother. She's great, and they're all so good, and they're doing it with Chechen accents, and it's really exciting. That will be in May. It's going to be on YouTube, so Bennington College in May. Quicksilver Theater is going to be workshopping my play, Minding Miss May May. I think that will be in June. I have another production of The Chechens was canceled due to COVID, and now they're just waiting to see. It'll be in Florida. I don't know when it's going to be, you know, just one of those things. Yeah, and so, you know, I'm just waiting to see where, I may or may not be in Sewanee if Sewanee happens, you know, just one of those things. And, you know, I do think that, you know, what I got mainly out of this is I really did not think that I would be good at digesting notes, but I'm finding I'm pretty good at it, you know, that it's like, I can actually like, you know, I can read it, do it. And if I don't understand it, I can call or email. And, you know, it's actually it's been really good for me to be able to get that skill, because it's a skill I did not have before this.
Thank you all. And I just want to echo what Francisca said. We want all of these plays to find homes. So if you're watching and you have a lovely home that could host a play, please reach out. We will be happy to do that. And also, I do want to encourage, whether you're watching live or you're watching a recording, me, as the marketing department, we do love to shout out our playwrights wherever they are. So if you want to keep up with any of these four, besides following them, do follow us. And we are very diligent about shouting out our playwrights, whatever they may be, except if they are close readings, I guess, which is a good note. Alexis, do you want to give us any sort of last lessons of love before we bring this to an end as the mother hen of this group?
That makes me sound so official. No, I mean, these are all wonderful, wonderful, thrilling, exciting playwrights with great voices and who are creating these great plays, like really excited about all their work. So I would encourage you to get to know them and their plays and their work. Like, go see the things that you can see, read the thing, you know, and keep an eye out on news from them vis-a-vis us or follow them on social, do the things, but they're truly some wonderful humans and some great writers. So, you know, keep an eye out on these rock stars. And Francisco, back to
And
you.
also keep an eye out on the readings that are going to happen next.
Yes, on the readings that are happening next week.
We will see you then. And thank you everyone who has been watching, and to our lovely fellows for their lovely participations. And have a good night, everyone.